Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Rundown, where we talk about 2A news and conservative views here on this Freedback Friday. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain in the state otherwise known as California. But as we all know, I do not do this program by myself.
No, my name is Mike Piworski. I come to you live from the East Coast, the coast with the most, here with your co-host with the most on the Rundown. 2A views, conservative news. Craig, how's your Friday going?
It is hot. It is like 12 years a slave hot out here, man. It has just not been.
Woo!
It has not
Woo!
been good.
That's a rough one. Hold on, let me see. I took the snapshot within the past 15 minutes here. Here's what we got going on in Central Florida.
Oh wow. Okay. So you're where we are. Only you have the humidity on top of it.
Yes. Yeah, we're 95 plus humidity equals 106.
Nice, nice. So I can tell you've been spending a little bit of time in the sun. At first, I was about to say because I know you got those lights that make you even more pale, but you look like you got some of that nice Florida sun, or at the very least, you've been baking internally.
It was like 15 minutes outside today too. It's pretty brutal.
So now, how's the temperature there in the studio?
66.
Ah. Nice, nice. Yes,
66. Yeah.
when you're operating when you're operating lights and computers and equipment and all of that, I have found the best thing to do is to keep that studio nice and cool. So, needless to say,
Yes.
it's almost brisk enough in here where I could put a sweater on.
Yeah. That's definitely when you're walking from 106 into a 66 room. It's it's a little I'm a little chilly.
I feel you, sir. I feel you, sir. Hey,
I
folks.
didn't know if I could say nipply or not. I didn't know. I didn't know if I could say that.
Nipply is not one of the one. It's not one of the seven dirty words. So anyway, it's not one of the seven prohibited
dirty
words.
words.
So let's just
Seven
not
deadly
abuse
words.
it.
What is that? Like
Come on, man. You do radio.
I wanna
You
know
know
these.
the words you're not supposed to stay on the radio.
Oh yeah. No, I don't. I know. When we try to say booger at least once a week just to push the envelope. Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to broadcast, the definition of what is what is offensive really kind of
Yeah.
changes. That doesn't mean what it used to mean,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, we've done on the radio before where we've had to hit the dump button so many times in a row that we have to sit there for a minute in silence.
That's hilarious.
And we feel shame.
Hey, folks, however you guys are paying attention to the program, however you're watching the program, if you're watching us live, do us a favor, drop us a line. Let us know that you're there. Let us know that you're enjoying the program. If you got any questions, any concerns, we will ignore them, but say hello, say hello anyway. And also, by the way, like, share, and subscribe, and encourage your friends to do the same. Let them know that this is the place where the conversation is taking place, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook. If you're watching us on Rumble, then chances are you're watching a pre-recorded version or a rebroadcast. Same thing with Spotify, or if you're listening to the podcast. But once again, YouTube and Facebook. Whether it's on Arms Room Radio, whether it's at Craig DeLuz, whether it's at the Rundown, or the California Republican Assembly, you're watching us live. So do us a favor. Give us a shout out.
Right. But remember, if they're watching it pre-recorded, Craig, they're not watching us now, they're watching us later.
Right. Well, now later for us, now for them.
Right. So then, which would be now, not later. Yeah.
Okay. But I'm speaking to the future them. The future to them that haven't even watched.
That's right. We are speaking to the future them right now. Yes, we are.
These time paradoxes, man.
I don't know how we are able to talk to each other when we're 3 hours apart. That's the weird part.
Modern technology, bruh. Modern technology.
Yep.
All right, well, hey, let's go ahead and let's get into today's stories. We have always, almost forgot, just real quick, we got to give a shout out to our sponsors at the top of the show.
Oh, yeah. Let's do that. Let's say hey to our newest sponsor there, Hitman Industries. Make sure you get to hitmanindustries.net. That's hitmanindustries.net. Chances are, if you own an AR-15 in the past 10 years, 50% of chance you've already got their barrels. But some of the best top barrels in the country coming out of there. Check them out. And more than just barrels, get what you need from them. The California Republican Assembly. Don't forget these fine folks over there fighting behind the iron curtain. And then, of course, uscombatgear.com.
That's right, folks. Once again, all of these folks, the links to their websites are in the description of this program. Go there, check them out. If you like what you see, spend some money with them and tell them that the guys over at the Rundown sent you. Okay, now we will get into today's news. We have always
or later if we're pre-recorded,
depending on where you're at. Yeah, it's later depending on where you're at. So we have always talked to you about gun control, and the very truth is, and the truth that many people on the left don't want to admit is, gun control, in particular the right to carry or the right to possess firearms, has always been about keeping those people from being able to own or possess firearms. Whether it was Native Americans, whether it was Chinese, whether it was Mexicans, whether it was black people or newly freed slaves. It's always been about keeping, in particular, minorities or undesirable people from being able to own or possess firearms. Well, New York, following the New York Pistol v. Bruen decision, they decided they were going to pass a bunch of laws. Once again, not just restricting where you can carry a firearm, but also adding to. Now, by the way, they had a good cause requirement that just got slapped down, but what is still in place is of good character, good moral character. And usually in the past, that's pretty much meant, or most municipalities take it as, all right, you haven't been convicted of a felony, or basically you can pass a background check and own a firearm, and you're not someone who has a history of just regularly threatening people with violence and stuff like that. So sometimes they'll do an interview, sometimes they'll look at your social media, but it's never really like, they don't.
Right. It's like the same restrictions you would see when you filled out a 4473. That should be it.
Exactly. Well, in New York, they have actually decided that, and as they are working to defend their position or defend their laws, they decided to harken back to the original gun control laws, which basically which looked at good character. And part of that was these were laws that banned Native Americans from being able to carry firearms, that forbid Catholics, or basically it didn't really just forbid Catholics. It was you had to be Protestant in order to be able to be approved to be able to carry a firearm. But these are the laws that are in place. These are the laws that were in place that New York is now arguing in their legal briefs are the foundation and the reason why they ought to be able to continue to have that sort of discretion when it comes to good moral character.
Yeah, let's lay this out. Under the Bruen decision, it said the only methods for enforcing gun laws or examining gun laws if their constitutionality is to look at the plain text and the historical content. So New York has decided they were going to look back at historical content, Craig, although they decided to go with historical racist gun laws that have since been overturned everywhere. I guess they didn't, recognize the part about the laws have to be valid laws currently to use them as historical reference, because they went back and found laws that are clearly racist, clearly discriminated against like you said, race, color, creed, religion, everything. And those are the ones they're citing as the reason that they should be able to continue to keep people from having firearms is a historical racist content. It's you shake your head. You're like, hold on, they're doing what? I mean, you really have to wrap your head around it. They're citing laws that have been struck down as reasons that people shouldn't be allowed to carry firearms now, because they had to have a historical context. What?
Well, they're arguing that, we were able to determine in the past what good moral character meant. And in that case, they said, well, if you were Native American, you were not of good moral character. Or if you were Catholic, you were not of good moral character. So they're saying that because they were able to arbitrarily determine what good moral character meant, well, then there's a historical basis for them being able to do it. Now, what they've completely ignored is, but that foundation that you used was not constitutional. But in
Correct.
essence, they're
Correct.
Yeah.
In fact,
Mhm.
in the Bruin decision, hold on here, I've got the quote for it. Bruin was very clear. It said, of course, in a modern instance were to arise where gun licensing requirements were applied in a discriminatory manner, it could, should, and would be struck down as unconstitutional. So even having that in Bruin, New York has said, we don't care. You've just told us not to do it this way. We're still going to do it this way.
Pretty much. That's exactly, and in fact, that's exactly what they said. It is, it's crazy that they would do this, but folks, and then once again, if you are a Democrat or if you are someone who is anti-gun and you are watching, so if you're anti-gun and you're watching this program, I applaud you. Hopefully, you will not be anti-gun too long, but there is no doubt, and they are justifying it, that or they are proving it, that once again, the foundation of gun control in these United States is racist, is racism, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's absolutely no
Chicago
doubt.
tried this. Yeah, Chicago tried this under the McDonald decision.
Right.
They cited some historical racist context, and it was thrown out. Then they said no, no, it doesn't. That doesn't be. It's got to be constitutional. It can't just be in the history. It has to be constitutional.
Right. Right. So we're gonna point to an unconstitutional law and use that as evidence that our current law, which it is modeled after, is constitutional.
Exactly. It's a head shaker when you try and figure it out. It really is.
Well, yeah, when you consider back then, the number of racist things that were in place at that time.
Oh, back then, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to figure out the reasoning that they're asking for this is just like, you're doing what? You're doing, no. Not only no, but it says no. Here you can't do that.
Right.
But you've still decided that, I guess, historical racism is okay, and that's going to be okay.
Right. Not just no, but hell no.
This is equivalent to New York coming out and saying, we're going to segregate our schools and we're going to keep black kids away from white kids because the Plessy versus Ferguson case said we could do it.
Yep. Even though that ain't law no more. But
that's right.
You gotta wonder about these folks sometimes. That's how. By the way, that is how bad they want to keep you from being able to defend yourself. They're willing to admit, we're racist, but hey.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. Ridiculous.
We've talked to you ad nauseum over the last week, especially once it actually passed both houses. The Inflation Reduction Act. We all know that in essence that was Build Back Better, or the baby Build Back Better, revamped, renamed, and repackaged. It has absolutely nothing to do with reducing inflation. What is amazing, and I'm not going to call it amazing, because in the end, the mainstream media now, and you've got all of them now, even MSNBC, which we know is just beyond the pale bad. Even MSNBC is now realizing, or they're saying they're realizing it, they are now acknowledging that the Inflation Reduction Act has absolutely nothing to do with reducing inflation and was in fact all marketing. Now, here's where I think they're disingenuous, Mike. I think they always knew. They always knew that it didn't do anything, but they were willing to play along because they wanted to see it passed. And now that it's passed, they're like, oh my, how could this have happened? We have been duped.
Yeah, of course they knew, right? Of course they do. They're carrying the president's water for him. They're the ones delivering his message. And now they want us to believe that, Craig, here in 2 weeks, they did this. They went, hey, we actually just read it now, and it's going to be more inflation. We didn't read it before. We're dumb. We didn't think to do that. Now we read it, and it's bad. No, they were carrying his water for him. It's what they were doing, delivering his message and being deceitful to you the entire time about it.
Well, before it ever passed, the Congressional Budget Office said it was going to do nothing to reduce inflation. And all you had to know that the Congressional Budget Office said that was to either read their report or watch Fox News or read the New York Post,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
alternative news sources. That's all you had to do to
Yeah.
know that it did absolutely nothing. All you had to do was listen to every time a Democrat was asked, okay, how exactly will this reduce inflation? And they went on to say it's not going to reduce inflation without saying it, right? They talked
Yeah.
about, well, it's going
Right.
to eventually bring down the cost of energy. For those of you who are going to go out and buy a $60,000 minimum electric car, you're going to get an additional credit. For those of you who are going to put, $50,000 worth of solar panels on your roof, you're eventually going to get a credit. For those of you who are on Medi-Cal, we're going to cap where you're going to be able to spend, how much you're going to have to spend on out-of-pocket medicine. But none
Yeah.
of that
Medicare. Yeah.
reduces inflation. None of it.
Yeah. No. They're just going out back and pulling money off the tree growing in the money tree in the rose garden there. I guess that's how they do it. It's magic money, Craig. We're gonna print more, we're gonna make more, and it's not gonna devalue the dollar at all. Not at all.
Well, here is what this bill has deflated. The amount of time it takes between the time we know the Democrats are lying and the mainstream media actually points out that they were not correct or not telling the truth. It used to take, during COVID, it took like 2 years. Now we've got it
Yeah.
down till a week after the bill passes. Then we know that,
Right.
then they
Yep.
start telling us the truth.
Yep. Whoopsie.
Whoopsie. Funny. Well,
Whoopsie.
because,
Whoopsie.
and by the way, it's amazing that let me clarify. It still hasn't passed yet. Once the ban on once the assault weapons ban, the ban on semi-automatic centerfire rifles passes, that's when the media will come out and say, you do know that these are not used in gun crimes, right? That people aren't using them to commit suicide, that 2.6% of all gun crimes are committed with rifles as a whole, and an even smaller percentage with these weapons. See, once that passes and is signed into law, HR 1808, once that passes and is signed into law, that is when you'll finally hear the mainstream media talk about that.
Yes.
That
Hopefully,
is-
right? Yeah.
Hopefully. Well, that is how they roll. That is definitely how
Yep.
the left rolls. They're not dishonest. They're just late in their honesty.
Yeah. Again, whoopsie. We failed to read it. We didn't know.
How did
we didn't
that
know.
happen?
That's what they want us to believe.
That's exactly
That's what they want us to
to believe. All right. Good news more good news, by the way, from Captain Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis. Now, as a part of a previously passed law, the governor was able to actually assign or create a unit of law enforcement specifically to go after, promote voter integrity and go after voter fraud. And Ron DeSantis has announced that, they done did some folks, 20 people. Now, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but this was the initial salvo. 20 individuals who were not supposed to vote. These are people who were convicted of felonies or violent felonies. And even though they do have a way in which you can get your voting rights back there in Florida, these are individuals who didn't bother to get their vote, try to get their rights back or anything like that. They went and they voted. They weren't supposed to vote. And so now they're being brought up on charges. Once again, these are all violent felons. And, Mike, some people are poo-pooing this idea. They're saying, is that it? That's all you got? 20 people who weren't supposed to vote, who actually voted. And it's amazing to me because every single time, no matter how many instances of voter fraud you bring up to them, they're always like, really? Is that it? Is that all?
Yeah, listen, this is like you said. In fact, the governor called it, this is the opening salvo, is what you're going to have here. By the time he's done, they're going to have to build a new jail for voter frauders. They're going to have a whole new place to put them. Florida's law is Now, once you're free of supervision, whether that's out of jail, off parole, off probation, whatever it happens to be, you can apply for it. It's pretty much automatic to get your rights back. The exceptions to that are violent criminals, the murderers, the rapists. They're not getting it back. They've said that those can't get it back. And there's an additional little fact: the Second Amendment rights is not included in that when you get your rights back. You still have to petition the basically the board, the parole board, to get those rights back, and that's very far and few in between. But the people, and I watched them on the news here, this afternoon, Craig. They're on TV and they're saying, well, they sent me a voter registration card in the mail, so I figured I would be all right. I like, oh, okay, gotcha. That's how it works.
Well, but Mike, that's the same thing that they did here in California when they found out that tens of thousands of people were actually registered to vote and were voting who weren't even citizens, who weren't supposed to vote, because here we have this thing called motor voter, where if you have a you can register through the DMV, and then they went ahead and they just started registering everybody. They didn't even bother, and so you almost had to unregister. Let them know that, yeah, I'm not an American citizen. But if they
remember, because in California, we have motor voter law here also, but in California, remember, the law says when you go to get a driver's license, it's illegal to ask them about their citizenship.
Right.
So they just assume they're citizens, and they also register them. So you've got, and again, last time I saw the number, Craig, it was estimated up to 2 million people in California that are illegals that are voting, not just illegally voting, but illegals that are registered to vote.
Well, I don't know how many are registered to vote, but I know that there's enough to where, and they're concentrated enough areas where it can have an effect on elections. And there is absolutely nothing being done to discourage people who are not legally allowed to vote from voting. We don't do anything to clean off voter rolls for people when haven't voted in forever, if they've moved out of the state. So there's tons. And when we send out ballots to everybody. So it doesn't really matter if you request one or not. Everybody gets one, or every registered voter, every registration gets a ballot. So even if it's a non-valid registration, they get it. Even if you're a non-citizen, they get it. Even if you're in the country illegally, you get it. If you somehow got registered to vote, whether intentionally or on accident. But there's no voter fraud.
Yes.
But there's no voter fraud. We have complete and utter election integrity.
Yeah, I'm sure you do, Craig.
I'm being facetious. For those of you who are listening, I'm giving the yeah, right look into the camera right now.
I'm just reading some other stats here. California has more immigrant eligible voters than any other state, and they also have more illegal immigrant voters than any other state as well. So,
yes, that is in fact the truth, sadly, but that's because we have more illegal immigrants. I mean, we have a great percentage of those who've.
And again, when your governor and your liberal crooked government in your state passes a law that says it's illegal to ask somebody what their immigration status is, including the police, by the way. The police are not allowed to ask that. What do you expect?
No. It goes, Mike. It goes much further than that. Because we actually offer benefits to people who are in the country.
Yes.
You get additional, but you get a bonus prize if you are you are here in the country illegally. So that's life in California.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, this next one was you brought to the table, so I want you to go ahead and share this one with the folks.
There's a gun store in, let's see what's the town. The town is Berkeley County. It's in Berkeley County in South Carolina. Coastal Firearms. And I want you to remember Coastal Firearms, because if you happen to be anywhere in South Carolina, I want you to avoid this store like it had the COVID monkeypox, in the parking lot. So stay away from there. What happened was they had a gentleman working there. This gentleman was he's a veteran, a former Green Beret, and a former firefighter, and he was doing some extra time, working at the local gun store. Well, the owner of the gun store, and I'll pull up his name here in a moment for you. He decided to play a prank on this former Green Beret. They were having a little game in the store, I guess. He decided to be funny. He took this fake gun over and pointed the fake gun at him and pulled the trigger. And lo and behold, it's not a fake gun. It's a real gun. It shot him in the face, and it killed him. Well, that was back in November. It took the locals there about a month, I guess, to finish up the investigation and look at everything. And they still decided it was manslaughter. So they charged him with manslaughter. Guy went to jail, bonded out $15,000, still out on bond. Craig, here's the incredible part about this story. And we do want to talk about gun safety to wrap this all up with. But the incredible part about this is the ATF has allowed this store to remain open. The owner of the store he's the ATF's responsible party. He's the name of the licensee on the federal firearms license. The ATF has decided shooting someone in the face while playing what you thought was a joke with a gun that turned out to be a real gun is not reason enough to close the FFL down. Now, Craig, we know from what's been going on recently, if you get an audit at your store and the ATF finds that one of your customers failed to put his race down, or if he was of Hispanic or non-Hispanic heritage, that's enough to shut you down with. However, shooting employees in the face and killing them, not so much. That's okay.
Yeah, it's really kind of weird because they've ramped up the things at which that can cause you to actually just flat out lose your license, and almost all of the new things are all paperwork related. And now here's an instance where these are people who their job is to help facilitate the exercising of the Second Amendment. So these are people who are supposed to be responsible for safely storing and transferring firearms and ammunition between individuals, between manufacturers and between manufacturers and the retail customers. And when that is your responsibility and you ignore we're talking very basic firearm safety. All right. We're talking don't point a gun at something you don't intend to destroy. But even worse, when you're playing games, right, around a bunch of deadly items, if there's anybody who should know better than to play games like this, it's people who run or operate a gun store. And if you don't, then you need to give up your license.
Yeah, I'm still just dumbfounded by this, how this happens, how the ATF can decide that administrative issues that you take care of are something that we should stop for. We should shut your business down. But this is all right. Shooting someone in the face, someone that's been now arrested. I get it. He has not been charged, or he has not been convicted of a crime. Craig, it doesn't matter to me if he's been convicted of a crime. This is clear evidence of improperly being able to handle the firearm, deal with the firearm, recognize a loaded firearm. This should be cause for that store to be shut down. It's again, dumbfounded. We got a couple of head shakers here today. This is one of them for me.
Yes, no, I completely agree. You're held to a higher standard. I mean, once again, you don't get the guy who got shot doesn't get a second chance, right? I'm sorry, right. But in this particular case, there's no reason this store should still be open. Period. At the very least, why haven't they, at the very least, if they're waiting for the outcome of the criminal case, why haven't they at least suspended the FFL? I mean, put it on hold. Something. But they've done nothing.
Yeah, nothing at all. So let's give them to you, Craig. I'll give the first one. You can follow with the second one, or I'll just do them all. Let's give those basic rules of firearm safety. And this changes. Listen, whether you go to the NRA or you go to a concealed carry location, you sometimes see 3, 4, or 5, but they're all the basic same thing. That just some are compound sentences. But I'm going to give you the first one. The first rule of firearm safety. Ready, Craig?
Right.
Never give your guns to the government. Nenever give your guns to the government. It's first rule.
Okay.
Firearm safety.
All right. That is true. That is true. Never give your firearms to the government. Okay.
Number 2, always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Number 3, always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot.
Booger picker off the bang stick.
That's right. Number 4, keep the gun unloaded and or secure until ready to use. Now, you'll see other ones put in there like always know your backstop, always know your target, that kind of thing. They all could just be, reinterpreted to these first couple of rules. So simple to do. Follow it every day. Toy guns as well. You think it's a toy gun, and this guy's dead.
If you treat every gun, toy or not, as though it were a loaded gun, then accidents like this do not happen. I've been on movie sets where we've used prop guns instead of real guns, or we've used airsoft, and I always have treated everyone like it was a real gun. That way, in the event that you do have a real gun, number one, you don't develop bad habits, but number two, you don't wind up with instances like in this particular case, or for example, what happened on the set of Rust, where you think it's not a real gun and someone winds up getting shot.
Listen to us, folks. What we're talking about. Listen, I'm an armorer and a prop master. In fact, I've got IMDb credits for doing this on movie sets. You treat every gun as if it's always loaded and ready to go, whether you know it's real or not real. I'm sorry. We don't even point fake guns at people. We don't point toy guns at people. And when we go to training and you get a laser style rifle from Next Level Training, the first thing you do is pass it around the room. You show it to everyone and pass it around the room, so everyone in there is 100% sure that it's a training item. And then you sterilize the room of all real firearms to make sure this doesn't happen. That's why we have these rules, to keep this kind of bull stuff. I almost said something else. Stuff from happening.
That word right there is completely and utterly appropriate. That is exactly what this fits. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, folks, well, that's just what pisses me off, because you know what? And I know already out there, 99% of the firearms retailers, FFLs out there are doing it right. But it only takes one example like this to make all of them look bad. So.
Yeah, shame on you, ATF. Shame on you for letting this go on when you're going after innocent goods store dealers that have a 0.01% clerical error, and you're tossing them out.
Exactly. Anyway, so we only have one parting shot for you today, but I think it fits.
Did you say shart? Did you say shart?
I said shot.
I think you said shart, but that's all right.
Parting shot. And it has to do with socialism and what exactly socialism is. And I'll just go ahead and show you. So socialism is resentment disguised as compassion, enforced by tyranny disguised as tolerance.
I guess when you put a couple extra N's in it, you could pronounce it tyranny.
I know, right. Man. Look, dude. I'm sorry. I apologize, man. It's been a long day. I'm not exactly.
It's not your quote. You just copied the picture. I get it.
Look, I'm not exactly hooked on all my phonics. The picture. Okay, but there was a piece. The reason this stood out to me, there was a piece that was put out by a newspaper that basically talking about how capitalism is destroying America, and I'm like, first of all, do you understand what capitalism is? In particular, do you understand what free market capitalism is and what that means? And if you did, you would realize that if there were no capitalism, there would be no America. We would not exist as we do as a nation, because we wouldn't have all that we have, and you wouldn't have a newspaper to be able to print it in. Anyway. Worked my last nerve.
Agreed. Capitalism is one of the reasons that America was founded, right? They came over here for for freedoms from taxes and everything else, So we wanted to, make profits, right?
Well, capitalism in particular, free market, it's based on this very basic concept. You are worthy of your hire. Man is worthy of his hire, meaning that you have ownership over the work, over yourself, right? Over the fruits of your labor, you should profit. You should benefit from the fruits of your labor. Now, some people say, well, that's slavery. No, that's when when you are forced to work for someone else, when someone else benefits from the fruits of your labor, and you have no say, no choice in it. They're like, well, but isn't that the same as slavery? It's like, well, no, because In capitalism, I can decide who else I want to benefit from the fruits of my labor, whether I want it to be my employer, whether I want it to be my customers, or whether I
Yep.
just want it to be myself. Or guess what?
Yeah.
I have a right not to work. Now, if I decide not to work, then that also means that I've made a decision not to eat.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. As long as you're not a burden on somebody else, you could do what you want.
Exactly. I'm all for capitalism because guess what? The United States is one of the few places in the entire world where you can go from poverty to wealth in a generation. I don't know any place
very
else
true.
that's possible. But by the way, before capitalism, do you want to know? You want to know how people became wealthy? By robbing, stealing, killing, raping, and pillaging. That's how people became wealthy
right.
prior to capitalism.
That's right.
Now all I got to
Yeah.
do is figure out a way to provide something that you want at a price you're willing to pay, and I can get there.
Yeah.
Speaking of buying and selling and good capitalism, let's give one more shout out to our sponsors before we head out today.
Let's talk about some of the best barrels out there on the market. Hitmanindustries.net. Go to hitmanindustries.net. Also, make sure you follow the folks over at the California Republican Assembly fighting the good fight. And then, of course, when all that other tactical gear, all the non-gun gear that you want for your tactical needs, uscombatgear.com.
That's right, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a phenomenal week. Tons of stuff to talk about. Man, wow. But anyway, we appreciate you guys tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. We're going to be gone now for a couple of days, but we'll be back on Monday. Fun day. Gun day. Talk to you again real soon.
Yeah, baby.